Thank you, Sandy. That was lovely. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. I'm Alan Kopishke, he, him, and I am your service leader today. Nice to see you all this morning. If you're joining us online, hello. Also like to acknowledge here the First Nations people who are the original inhabitants of the region, including the Ho-Chunk, the Menominee, the Potawatomi, among several of the First Nations of Wisconsin. It's our custom here to ask those of you who may be here with us for the first time to introduce yourselves if you're comfortable. Maybe tell us where you're from, what your pronouns are, what brings you here today. And if you're comfortable doing so, please stand and someone will bring you the mic. Anybody new here? Oh, very good. It's not my first time. Who's got the mic?
I could probably talk loud enough. Can I talk loud enough?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I'm the daughter of Richard and Sally Malm. I'm the younger daughter. I've been here, this is probably my third or fourth time. Originally from Illinois, then moved to the DC area for 33 years, and now I've been a resident of North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina for almost 7 years. And
Welcome.
I'm up here on business with the Oneida Nation in Green Bay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else care to introduce themselves? All right. Well, welcome all. Who here's been to Third Avenue Playworks? All right. Who's been to the new one? Yeah. Good. Well, for me, you know, it's intimate, it's comfortable, and it's where the most engaging and lasting experiences are happening. So who's making it happen but my friend Jacob Jansen, the brilliant artistic director of TAP, and he's here to talk about inefficiency. So for those of you at home, no doing yoga during the service. No pretending you're taking notes on Jacob's talk, but actually making your grocery list. You know, none of this multitasking here. We're going to be inefficient today. I'm going to be so inefficient, I'm not even going to pay attention. So I'm looking forward to Jacob's chat today. A reminder, after the service, enjoy coffee and tea and snacks in the gathering room. And then when the chimes ring, we'll have a discussion of the service afterwards here in the sanctuary. All right, it's time for announcements. If anyone has announcements relevant, there we go. We'll start over here, and we got the mic.
All right, on behalf, is it working? Yeah, okay. On behalf of the program committee, we'd like to give everybody a voice in selection of speakers. And to that end, we've got on Sarah's station a form that can be anonymously filled out, evaluating speakers and suggesting other speakers. So if you listen to somebody and you think, boy, this person's great, we got to have them back, go fill it out. And in the alternative, then we can do that too. And you can do that anonymously. So please use this. It helps us a lot. Thank you.
All right. We've got a couple more here.
This way. Good morning, everyone. It's Jane Wise. So I'm going to thank you one more time from the Social Justice Committee for all the food donations you made last month. We tried our Red Food Month last month. It was kind of fun. So we thought about March and what we're going to do for March. And we thought about St. Patrick's Day, and we thought about spring starting, and we thought green. And then we thought, well, I don't know, how many green foods are there that we can donate? And then we thought if we kept with the color scheme going, it was really going to be hard with blue. So we're not going to specifically do that. But we want to make sure you know that I went there yesterday to the Door of Life Food Pantry. That's where we take all the food in our food barrel. And they had a good supply, and I'm going to read this here, of soup, pastas, and canned beans. Not green beans, but like black beans and pinto beans and things like that. So in a more serious vein, we really need to keep helping our community during these particularly difficult times in our country. They did not have any cereal, peanut butter, tuna, crackers, canned fruit, or canned vegetables. None. So I would hope that maybe while we're all waiting for a nice green spring, that you can continue to donate food from our, abundance to those who don't have so much abundance. So thank you very much.
Good morning. This is Anna Knapp. After the talk back today, I will be in the gathering area with some postcards that are UU the Vote themed postcards that we'll be sending out. So please, if you can, stay and help address some of those. I only have 50, so it's a very manageable task. And know that I'm breaking out the special snacks that we received in recognition of all the hard work that we did during the last election season. We became, what was the name of that we got?
Good Trouble Congregation.
We were a Good Trouble congregation. Thank you, Mark. And we received a huge box of really cool snacks. So I will be bringing those to our postcard writing today.
Is that it? Oh, one more over here.
I'm happy to announce the installation of solar panels on the roof in my house in Cedarburg. And in December, we had 3 sunny days. January was a better month. And my electric company tells me I saved 35% of what would have been my bill. And I have calculated that if I live to be 150 years old, I will get a complete payback. And I've been considering contacting the solar panel company to ask them if they would consider giving me a payment for advertising. Because of course they're on my roof for everybody to see. But they've declined. But I'm happy, and I said I didn't do this for my generation. I didn't do this for the next generation. But I did this because it seems to be the right thing to do.
Nice. All right. Our chalice lighting words today are from Linda Lee Franson. We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who stand on the side of love for all. We light this flame for those who have been ridiculed, that they may find peace, for those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate, for those who live in uncertainty in the world, that they may have hope. We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. We light this flame to celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame. And I just want to add, as we carry this light in unstructured time on indirect pursuits, may our light fall upon unexplored nooks and pockets that may lend us new insights. And now you are invited to stand in body or spirit for hymn number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple."
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, will be our delight, till turning, we come round right.
And please remain standing for the unison affirmation. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within the caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land, by every tongue.
Yes, please be seated. And now you may share with us any joys and concerns you may be holding in your heart and wishing to share with this community. Again, wait for the mic, and remember that this service is live and being saved on the internet. So take care in what you share and make sure you have permission to share.
I don't know if this is a joy or a concern or amusement, but listening to the singing this morning, I was just transported back to our very first meetings in Scandia Village at the Meadows in '96, when that Sunday there may have been 14 of us, and we laughed so hard at our horrible singing. We were debating among ourselves, do we really want hymnals in this congregation? So thank you all for your voices.
I'm closest to you.
I may be announcing this again sometime in the next few weeks or months, but I'm very happy that my first granddaughter, Amanda, is moving back to Door County from Pennsylvania with her husband, a big dog, and 2 little girls. And they're looking for a 3 or 4 bedroom house to rent. Her sister is a realtor and she's looking too, but I thought the more word gets out, the better it will be.
Hi, Mark Richards. I just want to thank everybody for your prayers, your thoughts, and your hopes for Christina. She's recovering very well. She's up at home. She's still taking her therapy, but she is doing really, really well. We thank you all.
Carol is coming along very well. This is the week we've been waiting for a long time. The surgery is going to be this coming Friday. It will be done at Grafton, Wisconsin. She will be in the hospital for approximately a week with a 6-week recovery. And she's doing very well. Many of you, or some of you, have come by and visited. She's in great spirits. She's a strong woman, let me tell you. And we're very thankful, grateful for all the support we've received from this congregation. Visits, cards, phone calls, all that's so important. Maybe our long journey is starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. UUFTC makes many gifts of service to the community. If you are so inclined, please fill the basket with your offerings when it comes by. And you can also make offerings at uuftc.org. This brief reading is from Haruki Murakami's novel, Killing Commendatory. Chapter 1. No. The central character is an artist, and he's having a conversation with his mysterious and engaging new neighbor, Wataru Menshiki. He asks Menshiki, "Don't you ever get bored?" Menshiki smiled, "I can't remember ever being bored. I've been too busy." I could only shake my head in admiration. "How about you?" he asked. "Have you ever been bored?" "Of course, happens a lot. In my case, however, boredom is an indispensable part of life." "Don't you find it painful?" "I guess I've gotten used to it, so it doesn't feel like pain." "I bet that's because painting is so central to your existence. That's your core. Your passion to create is born out of what you call boredom. Without that core, I'm sure you'd find boredom unendurable." And now, at this time, we ask that you recognize your joys, your concerns, your regrets, your anticipations, whatever's cluttering your mind, and embrace each so you can gently set them aside in order to be more present in this moment and appreciate what life has to offer you right here and right now.
Hello. It's good to see so many familiar faces and to be back here once again with all of you in fellowship and in community. Allow me to reintroduce myself for those of you who didn't see me the last time I was here. My name is Jacob Jansen. I am the Steve and Jackie Kane Artistic Director at Third Avenue Playworks down in Sturgeon Bay. I am a theater artist by training, and I want to talk to you this morning about inefficiency. In fact, I would like to make a spirited case in defense of inefficiency. Now, perhaps this seems a bit out of step with our times. And I am a person who practices an artistic tradition that is millennia old, so I probably am out of step with our times. I admit that. But perhaps we all have our own definitions of what efficiency means, right? Because I think if we're going to define efficiency or inefficiency, we probably ought to know what its obverse is. And the Oxford Dictionary defines efficiency as the state or quality of being efficient. With that out of the way, I like this more technical definition better. The ratio of useful work performed by a machine or in a process to the total energy expended or heat taken in. I love that heat taken in thing. Just love it. But that feels like the definition that I understand, right? It's about the amount of investment to return. That feels like efficiency to me. But I think, and we will all probably, everyone in this room agree that maximizing efficiency is a near universal good. Hard to argue against that, right? Like less work, more return, more fun. I think we all agree with that. But I'd like to talk to you about a little efficient experience I once had. So being the good son that I am, about 2 years ago, I took my parents on a trip to Ireland as a sort of paying them back for all of the unpaid childcare they had been performing for me and my young child. And the other thing you got to know about this story is my young son would only take naps in the car, which is hard when you're in Ireland and you've got to find a way to like make this like 1.5-year-old, snooze a little bit. So we decided that what we would do is we would go out and do a bit of the Ring of Kerry. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Ring of Kerry is supposedly one of the most scenic routes you can drive in the world. It winds through mountains along the coastline, through villages and into, little mountain glens. It is stunning. But look, I can't have my kids sleep for 4 hours in the car. We got to make it quick. So we decided to go out for a while. We drove for about 45 minutes, and then we said, okay, we should probably turn back so we can head back towards the place that we're staying. So we punched into Google, whatever, and we said, give us the shortest route back to the Airbnb where we're staying. Great. So it took us off the Wild Atlantic Way, up a little road off to the right, and my dad is sitting next to me, of course, on the left, and he is navigating, and we start to wind up, cut back after cut back after cut back as the road gets narrower and narrower and narrower to the point that he leans over and goes, is this a bike path? It wasn't a bike path. No. It was a mountain pass. And it was a mountain pass that once we reached over the coastal ridge, we could see for miles. And miles in the distance was another car coming towards us on what was very much a one-lane road. And so we pulled off and we enjoyed this sort of beautiful scenery, right? Because it was completely unexpected. And then once they, passed, we made our way up that mountain road again. And as these mountains towered above us, we all sat in wonder and in awe of this just serendipitous moment. And then there were sheep. And what was the most efficient route took us hours. But it was such an experience. Because, when I think of traveling, I think about the process of traveling. It's about the experience and the life that you lead in the traveling that is the thing that is worthwhile. Now, of course, that highly efficient route was more efficient than just turning around on the motorway. Yeah, it was shorter. But the length of time that, preceded was far, far longer than if I had just found a place to pull a U-ey. But I think that all points to the bigger idea here of what is efficiency and who gets to measure it. Because for us, that day, those hours sat in that kind of beautiful setting that we would have never experienced. That was what we were after. And efficiency is all about who is doing the measuring. That is at the core. So today I'm going to talk to you about efficiency at a personal level, at a social political level, and of course, a spiritual level. So personal efficiency. Now, if you venture out onto the internet at all, ever, as sometimes we are wont to do, and maybe a fit of boredom, you'll probably see this optimization culture is everywhere. Now, optimization culture is mostly in folks, these so-called influencers, folks who will help you live a better, more impactful, and more efficient life. These are people who make posts of unbelievably complicated green smoothies with ingredient lists that are like an entire shopping cart full, right? And of course, they're in search of the perfect nutritional balance. Or it is the folks who spend what seems to be, and most likely is, every waking minute in the gym in pursuit of perfect Adonis-like perfection, telling us that they are living just a totally normal life and you can too. Or it is the peoples who extol the virtues of a new workflow technique that will allow you to bend the fabric of space and time itself to fit 16 hours of work into a mere 4-hour window. And if you click here, they'll sell you the answers. Now, from where I sit as an artist, someone who works in the smoke and mirrors of narrative and illusion, all of these are obviously primarily for show. They're unrealistic, performative fictions. They are deceptions that have the ultimate effect of creating in us a hunger to have the best, to be the best at everything, the desire to make sure that we, in all things, are striving for mastery. Now, I wish I could say I am immune to these. I am not. I, too, am weak. I would love to get 16 hours of work into 4 hours. That'd be great. But the influencer's influence being felt, we go out in our work, in everything we do, and we want to do it in the best way. And so we buy into their recommendations. We parse lists at home of the greatest coffee makers so that way we can achieve maximum caffeination. Right? We dissect financial papers to make sure that we are guaranteed the greatest return on our investments. We go to the gym and we hire a trainer to whip us into shape. And then we scrutinize our diets for waste, fraud, and abuse. Boy, can I tell you there's abuse there, if I'm just speaking for myself. And then even on vacation, on our vacations, on our one moment of repose, we all go check out those lists of the top 10 best things to do, the bucket list trips, the things to see before you die, et cetera, because someone on the internet told us it was the best and only way. I'm just tired thinking of how optimized and efficient a life I could lead. Now, of course, I'm having a little bit of fun here, but when I think it points to something a bit dark in our culture, that we are always so hungry for more, that we are desperate to economize our lives just to get a little bit more life in there. And it feels like we are doing that at the expense of actually living. Because it displaces so much. Our focus becomes on continuous quantification of our lives, on our progress against our goals. And if we are measuring ourselves all the time, then are we truly alive and awake to the people and the world around us? Or does this attempt at mastery preclude us from connection and discovery? Now, on the social political level, right? In ancient times, there was a great emphasis on self-mastery and personal development. I mean, you can go back to the ancient philosophers and see it. All of them were interested in how the perfection of the person, the individual. But about 500 years ago, that started to shift, right? During the Middle Ages, a move away from reason into mysticism sort of displaced that personal development. But then, in the pre-industrial era, things began to change again. Because it was in this period, if you were living in a feudal European society and you were probably a serf. And I know we'd all like to think that we were descended of lords and ladies, but look, if you're a white person here in America, you know, you were probably a dirt farmer like the rest of us. But in that period, in Middle Ages Britain, the life expectancy was about 35 years, which meant that you did things the way your parents did things, which meant that they did things probably the way that their grandparents did things. Life didn't change much in that era. But it was the rediscovery of those ancient texts, the ideas, the reason, the ancient wisdoms that spurred the Renaissance and that flowering of humanity and art that allowed people to start to develop things like the scientific method, an application of process to progress. So the Industrial Revolution came directly out of the development of that scientific method of looking at how can we accumulate progress, efficiencies into the work that we do. And it led to technological advancements, vast machines and factories, and led to a revolution in thought. We started to see ourselves in our machines. We began to conceive of ourselves in our societies in terms that felt mechanistic. And this approach meant that we would take another leap forward. Our societies became more oriented towards maximizing production, and societies prospered mostly, which leads us to today. It's kind of fun to cram, thousands of years of human development into just a few minutes. But what does any of this have to say about efficiency? I would like to turn our attention towards the response to this efficiency. The 20th century French writer and philosopher Jacques Ellul formulated in his 1967 work, The Technological Society, La Technique is the totality of methods, rationally arrived at and having absolute efficiency for a given stage of development in every field of human activity. Now, this formulation of Ellul's captures the previous century's attempt at scientific human development. Now, I think this is such a fascinating idea. I really, truly do, because in basically every aspect of human endeavor, there is an attempt to rationalize how we do things. And it's not as if there was a meeting of people who have such meetings to get together and say, we should all do this the same way, right? No, it just happened naturally. So even in the art form that I practice, theater, there was an attempt at rationalization, right? Stanislavski had his system, and then Sandy Meisner and Strasberg and Uta Hagen all had their own method. And every acting teacher worth their salt thereafter all has some claim to a rational method for making theater art. In other fields were similar developments. Escoffier, the famed French chef and restaurateur, he had his Brigade de Cuisine, which took the anarchy of the kitchen and made something regimented. So that way you could produce food on a level of artistry that had never been before achieved. And then Henry Ford. He gave us the assembly line, the pure rationalization of production that has led us to such wondrous wonders as being able to drive 30 miles per hour on a rainy day in April without dying. Of course, many other things. But this hyper-rationalization of every single effort that we make does come at a cost. Of course, they all wanted to organize their work as artists, creators, industrialists, and this efficiency does have massive benefits. I don't dissuade you of that. Like, my mother is a diabetic, and we couldn't just homebrew some insulin, of course, right? We need that process, that orientation of labor in the direction of creating something that we all need. But when we start to apply it to our own personal lives, it displaces that human element. It displaces discovery. It displaces the connection between people that I think is fundamental to human thriving. And of course, it'll always get in the way of things of like learning from one another, because learning is deeply inefficient. You'll have false starts, you will have wasted efforts, but the process is always about self-discovery. Now, of course, I'd be loath to not talk about the sort of giant elephant in the room. Well, maybe not this room, but in Washington. There seems to be an effort towards economizing our system of government. But I would like to talk about the sort of the historical antecedents to that. Now, are any aware of effective altruism? Yeah, effective altruism. So it was a philosophy sort of formulated in the early 21st century, in the early 2000s, and it essentially is looking to use evidence and reason to figure out how to benefit others as much as possible, and then take action on that basis. That sounds great. I love it. But what it leads to is another philosophical tradition called long-termism. Now, long-termism became incredibly popular in Silicon Valley because what it essentially did was it said, we need to take a long-term, multi-generational view on any investment that we make, many generations in the future, and any action that we take today will have the impact on millions and billions of unborn people. Again, hard to argue with. But in the ideology of Silicon Valley, what they saw as being the most liberatory and worthy projects were things like the development of AI and the colonization of Mars at the exclusion of all other things. Now, my wife works in a women's shelter in Washington, D.C., and I don't know what those women think about the development of AI. But effective altruism steered unbelievable sums of money in the direction of creating large language models so that computers could talk to each other, and away from things like homelessness, hunger, right? Last estimates were that in the United States, to end homelessness, we would require an investment of about $20 billion a year to end homelessness, end housing insecurity. They're dumping billions of dollars into creating computers that can write a term paper for you. Again, these technological advances could have profound implications for our societies, yes, but if you invest in people, those people also have personal creative capacities that will never reach full flower because they are nipped in the bud. So then this long-termist view is short-sighted because it doesn't see the full potential and human capacity of all the people now living. It exchanges the living for the future. And I personally think that that is a crime and deeply inefficient. And of course, it has had massive implications because most of the proponents for this effective altruism, long-termism, have found their way into this government thing called Doge. It is the direct result of a sort of short-sighted philosophical tradition, modern philosophical tradition. Now, just to pivot away from that, because I find it troubling, I want to talk about spiritual efficiency. Because I think this is the place that we all want to spend some time in thinking about what does it mean. So when I think about efficiency, the first thing that comes to mind as an artist is the book Zen and the Art of Archery. Is anybody aware of that book? Incredible. It was written in 1948. Eugene Herrigel, he was a German living in Japan, and he was learning about Japanese culture. Now, it was handed to me as a young acting student. I'm, from Kiel, Wisconsin, country boy, and I was studying acting. I was told, well, the actors in New York at NYU, they all read this. And I was like, oh, well, then I better read this. Those are the professionals. And I remember finishing it. It's about 100 pages long, and it's literally about a guy learning how to pick up a bow, draw it back, and he almost never shoots the arrow. I was like, and what does this have to do with acting? But the central thesis of that is about the artless art. It is about the cultivation of the individual and the discipline to learn that you don't know everything, maybe anything, and that art is a process. It is not a product. And that the object of art is an accumulation of processes. One of the most amazing things inside of that book is he tells this story about the first time that his Zen master archery teacher said, "You did it! You did it right!" and he missed the target. He had hit the target before, and the teacher was like, no, again, no, again, no, again, no, again. And the reason was, it is not about hitting the target. The master explains that the target is not the goal. You, the archer, are the target. We do not shoot at an object, we shoot at ourselves. We shoot at mastery of ourselves. We shoot at something that is empty and capacious, that we can be open to the world around us and engage with it as it is in its moment. And so, after 5 years of studying, he finally got that master to say, you did it, and he just grazed the target. And it was in that moment that he understood, it is not about how I strike the target, it is about how I come to become the target. Now, why I think this speaks to inefficiency or efficiency is it took him 5 years of diligent practice. In a Western tradition, we might look at that and go like, well, no, you should be shooting at the bullseye. You got to hit that every time. But it is a spiritual practice. It is an art. And I believe that all artistic endeavors are spiritual practices. Because he describes drawing the bow back hundreds of times before he is allowed to loose the arrow. He describes how that rehearsing the process become a second nature for him. And as a theater artist, right, one of my favorite things, I mean, you might assume that my favorite thing is actually the performance, right? The thing that we eventually end up showing to our audience. And it's not. It's rehearsal. It's when I get in a room and I'm joined by other artists who bring their joy, their capacity, their curiosity into the room with me. The thing that we end up creating, again, is an accumulation of their generosity of spirit and joy. And it is highly inefficient the way that I make. Now, if any of you ever know anything about opera, an opera, the director tells you exactly where to stand, how to talk, what to look like, how you're going to do it. But when I practice, we look at the text together and I say, what do you think? And we start to play. We find it on our feet. We walk through it and we intuitively land on it. And we discover what the play will be together. And in that, the artists are able to bring their own truth to it. I guarantee you it would be more efficient if I told them how to say it. Guarantee it. But it wouldn't be as moving. It wouldn't be as funny, and it wouldn't be as impactful. And I think that's why my art form exists thousands of years after it was first conceived. Because we can move somebody's spirit. We can touch somebody's soul. We can make somebody laugh in dark times. And it comes out of community. And community is, by its very nature, deeply inefficient. Because people all have an opinion and they want to share them. And we have to be in the kind of crunchy chaos of all of these minds coming together. But these minds together have a wisdom. And it is like the archer in Zen and the Art of Archery that you just have to open yourself to the wisdom of the bow, the string, the wind, and the arrow to be able to realize that wisdom. Archery is a community as well. So I want to also just point us back again one last time to that trip that I took with my parents, because there's a little bit of an irony there that it turns out that little mountain pass that we ended up on, well, actually it was on a bunch of these top 10 lists, best ofs. And I didn't find that out until much, much later. But it was still one of my absolute most cherished memories from that experience of getting out of the car with my whole family and having all of the sheep and having to shoo them away. Had I planned to do it, I would have missed out on the serendipity and the joy of discovery. Because it's in that joy of discovery that we find what we are not prepared for, what we don't have capacity for, but we discover other strengths and we discover other beauties. And I think it is in those things that we ought to be thinking of how we invest our time, how we invest our resources, how we invest our spirit. And those things resist the sort of measures that are often considered efficient in our contemporary culture and society. But I wouldn't be practicing an art form that's 6,000 years old if I wanted to do something hyper efficient, now would I? So I invite you all to find a bit more boredom in your lives, because in that boredom, you will find something new. And to find joy in the making of a sourdough bread, because it takes 24 hours and to be a heck of a lot more efficient to just go buy the loaf. Or to find joy in mending things. You could just buy a new pair of jeans, but if you patch it, they're uniquely your own. Thank you.
You are again invited to stand in body or spirit for our next hymn, which I have lost the number of. Thank you.
Find the stillness, hold the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Reminder again, after the service, you can enjoy coffee, tea, snacks in the gathering room. And when the chimes ring, we'll have the discussion right in here. Closing words are by Amy Zucker Morgenstern. Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparkling through space one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines.